everyone. Welcome to Menopause Chats. I'm your host, Erin. Today, I am delighted to have Dianne Allen, who is an executive mentor for neurodivergent and gifted adults here in Winston-Salem, actually. And we met sort of randomly through a Facebook group. And since she specializes, I was really curious around the what I've noticed is being the uptick of women being diagnosed with ADD or ADHD during perimenopause. And so I'm excited that you're here. And yeah, like, am I imagining this? Or are more women seeming to be getting diagnosed?
I think more women are getting diagnosed partially because it's been missed all along,
Right.
and then also because it's showing up more. That's why I'm happy to be here. When you invited me to come, I'm like, yes, oh my gosh, there needs to be more conversation about, we're all not crazy, even
Yeah.
though it might feel that way.
Yeah, so I know we talked briefly before we started recording. So, for those who weren't there, because it was just us, what what is happening with our? I know estrogen affects everything, so it sounds like this is also a contributing factor to like
Yes,
ADHD.
well,
Yeah.
ADHD is ADHD is linked to dopamine. So when you have somebody who's got ADHD, they're dopamine craving all the time. They're trying to get their dopamine up, which is the fatigue and the difficulty concentrating and the time blindness and all those things. And it shows up different in women than men, so it gets missed. And when somebody is working or they have a very busy life and they're cruising right along, it's easy to mask or cope with it and think it's just a passing thing. But once the estrogen level gets low enough, then estrogen and dopamine are so intrinsically linked that now the dopamine problem becomes very obvious. So now we have ADHD symptoms more obvious, even though they were always there because of the low estrogen. So now the perimenopause and menopause symptoms start showing up as well. And some of them are similar and some of them are not. And so, I had a woman I was working with that was like, I think there's something wrong with me. I wake up, I have 2 hours of energy, and then I have to nap for an hour, and then I can do it again, back and forth. And we determined that it was estrogen levels in her menopause that was triggering the dopamine situation. So she couldn't keep her energy up for the whole day without taking naps.
Right, which then can cause problems if
Yeah.
you're trying to
It's
hold a job or you're caregiving or something. It's like, oh, like I'd love to see, like I'm sure people would, it's like, oh, I need this, and but can I do it? Or giving yourself permission.
right. Well, right. And what she did, it was funny because she took some time off thinking she was burned out from work.
Right.
And she goes, okay, so I'm going to follow my rhythm because that's what I teach my gifted people to do,
Mm,
follow your own rhythm, right? So she kept sleeping every time she needed to sleep. She goes, I went through 2 days where I slept like every 2 hours for like 45 minutes. They weren't long naps, but they
right.
were enough. She goes, that's ridiculous. Just that's not sustainable. And I'm like, you're right. And so that's when we started talking hormones. I said, this sounds like a hormone issue and it needs to get checked. So she went to get her hormones checked. And of course, the doctor said, oh, you're fine. Well, people who are neurodivergent, which is ADHD and gifted, tend to be more sensitive and more aware. So often, a woman who has ADHD or a higher IQ or an increased sensitivity, maybe more empathic or insightful,
Hmm.
will feel the nuance in her own body so acutely that other people from the outside look and go, how do you notice that? How do you feel that?
Right.
Well, because we're more tuned in.
No, it's
So
just
there's
because I
that
do.
level too. I mean, I feel it all the time. I know what's going on in my body all the time. And so there's so much to be said about finding people who will actually listen.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're like, that's a whole other topic.
Yes.
Because it
Yes.
sounds like the same issues that women run into finding menopause care they can also run into trying to find proper care for, for however their, I guess neurodivergence is showing up.
Well, oh, absolutely. I mean, I've talked to many people who are doctors and who are well educated, and I'll ask a lot if I'm trying to refer a client or something. And I'll say, what do you know about giftedness? Because gifted people have a different nutritional need. We use more minerals, say, than other people, and the protein levels have to be different. There's a different brain development in a gifted person. And so ADHD fits in that. So there's a different brain development. So there's so many different factors. And so if I run into a professional who doesn't know about it, isn't educated on it specifically, then I keep looking for someone who does know. So when you ask a doctor or somebody, do you know about ADHD or neurodivergence or gifted, one of those questions, and they say, well, I've worked with smart people, they don't know about it.
Mm.
They've just worked with smart people. What we need, especially women that are having these struggles like with brain fog and things like that, is somebody who understands estrogen and dopamine and what these things are so that they can do a really clear assessment of what's going on. Like, no, it's not Alzheimer's. It is estrogen and dopamine deficiency, and we need to get your hormones balanced properly. And then if you're still having memory problems, we'll look at that. It's like an art, to say
Sure.
what order, to do things with. So you need somebody who will really, really listen.
Right. And it can be so hard to find that person.
That is very true.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is very, very true. And I think that's the biggest frustration that I help a lot of the women that I work with go through is, I mean, the name of my podcast is Someone Gets Me. And so
Hmm.
I believe in listening to somebody and hearing them so deeply that I can hear what they're not saying,
Right.
like, because it's lonely and it's suffering and it's nobody believes you. So pretty soon there's shame that comes in and not feeling good about yourself and confidence starts eroding, especially in work situations.
Yeah.
And that's not doesn't have to happen that way.
Right. And especially as someone who maybe was not having performance issues or was able to mask it or manage it up to a certain point, now all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's like, well, this person always was good. What happened?
Right.
And then employers aren't asking the right questions either.
Oh no.
And because also, we train managers like, don't ask. But you can always ask, like, is there something going on? Is there something going on? Is there anything I can do? So that's what I like to train managers on is like just asking the empathetic question of like, is there anything I can be doing for you? Or is there, but I think also as an employee, you might not know what your needs are either. And be like, I don't know if there's anything you could do for me because I don't even know what's going on.
I think that's really true. And I think that happens with way more women than we
Yeah.
even know about,
Yeah.
where they cruise in through their lives and all these things start happening and they don't even really realize it, especially if it's a slow onset.
Right.
Because they cope and cope and cope and cope and cope until they can't or until there's some kind of other crisis.
Right.
And sometimes when you say, is there anything I can do for you? It feels like a trick question to that person because they don't even know it's a thing
Right.
to ask, to answer.
Yeah. Or they don't know,
Yeah,
or they don't even know what their wants are. Like I work with a lot
right,
of women where it's, getting to the point of like, who do you want to be in this part of your life? And they're like, I don't know, because I've been a mother, I've been an employee, I've been a wife, like I've been all these things, but I don't know what I want.
right,
And then
right.
and that so it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's all compounded together
Totally,
together here.
because we're so trained to pay attention to everybody outside of us and not listen to our own self at all
Yeah.
on any level.
Yeah. So
And
then what are my
then,
needs? I don't know.
right,
I
right,
don't have any needs.
right. What needs, like, and
Yeah.
it's like but that's really important, for people to slow down and realize that they do have needs.
Yeah. I'm curious because people might not know. When you say gifted, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is a higher IQ than average, which is 130 or higher.
Mhm.
And I also mean that the person has what we call overexcitabilities, but I use a more current word, which is intensities.
Okay.
Dr. Dabrowski in the 40s called them overexcitabilities, and that has a different connotation in English
Sure.
today. And so I look at it as intensities. There's five major intensities, like intellectual intensities are the people who ask tons of questions all the time. They're curious and they always have to go down the rabbit hole. And then there's emotional intensities where they feel really deeply. And so somebody with an emotional intensity going through menopause and that has ADHD will look like they have bipolar disorder or something, or feel
Mm-hmm.
like they have a mood disturbance, and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of differential, diagnosing and looking at it. And then there's more intensities. But I see the gifted people as somebody who thinks differently. A gifted brain develops differently than a typical brain, and the person processes the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
So either they're going to process really fast, Like, got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. Or they're going to take it all in and they're not going to say much. And then they'll come back with what they're going to say. Like they process it internally and come back.
Hmm.
And so it's just not within the same flow of everybody else a lot of times.
Yeah. And so if someone is in this perimenopausal stage, well, I guess any even before that, and they're wondering, is this me? How would how would someone start to uncover this for themselves without going to Dr. Google, who's probably going to tell them something wrong?
What I like to suggest to people is find specialists who have either podcasts or books and start learning. And then what you do is you listen and you pay attention to how does it feel to you.
Hmm.
So, like when you first invited me to be on the show, I went and listened to some of your shows, and then I says, "How does this feel?
Hmm.
How does listening to this information feel?" And I could tell, okay, that really resonates with me. So I knew it would work.
Yeah.
And so I tell people to do that, to listen. Like my show has 455 episodes on it, and people can go and listen, and then they'll know if it feels right. And
Right.
there's a lot of specialists with about giftedness and not that many with adults. So you kind of have to filter through. There's like 7 of us that I know of that actually put content out there because
Mhm.
it's still not talked about in adults much. It
Right.
looks like it's only a kids thing.
Right.
But I always say find
And those kids grow
people.
up.
Yep, and it doesn't go away. In fact,
Yeah.
it gets feels bigger when you get older. And so I tell people just go find, start looking. I would not ask AI and I would not ask Dr. Google. I would not do that because those are just accumulations of all kinds of information that's out there and it's not always accurate.
Right.
But I do suggest finding other gifted people or other people that have similar situations and then ask yourself, is what this person talking about resonate for me?
Right.
And if you keep listening and then it doesn't resonate for you, you might have a situation to look at, but it may not be that thing.
Mm. Right. Because
That's one of the things. That's one of
I,
the things I do with people all the time is help them figure out what it really is.
yeah, I was saying because I think much like menopause, a lot of different symptoms. Not everybody has them. Probably the same thing with any sort of neurodivergency, like a lot of different
Yes.
ways it could show up, not the same for everybody.
Correct. Correct.
And so then it's like, oh, how do I know? I know with because I work a lot with, and trained to work with perimenopausal and menopausal women. I know it's like, say, if you think you have it, you do.
Right. I tell people if you're asking if you have it,
Yeah,
then the answer is yes.
yeah,
Because somebody who doesn't have it, because I work in a lot in substance abuse.
sure,
And so if somebody's walking around going, am I an alcoholic? Am I a drug addict? The answer is yes.
right,
Because people who are not don't ask that question.
right,
So if you're asking about it, then there's something there, and it looks different in everybody. So we want to stay away from comparison. That's why we want to just listen and say, okay, well, that resonates with me or this resonates with me. Oh, I have that level of fatigue. Oh, I have anxiety. Oh, okay. Well, maybe my anxiety is not mental illness. Maybe it's hormonal.
hmm, yeah,
Maybe it is related to giftedness, which is dopamine issues. And so what's the origin of it? And is it really anxiety?
yeah. And
So,
then what do you do about it? Right at that point, then it's
right,
finding somebody. Sounds like doing your own sort of inventory, maybe it's the word I'm going to use, and
right,
in research, like listening, and then being like, oh, is this me? Is this not me? Writing down the things that are you, so then you can talk to another professional who might be able to then, you know, help you with like, okay, now that I know this, because knowledge is one thing.
right, right,
Now what do I do? It's like, great, I know this. Now what?
right.
So I
And
guess
that's
what is the now what for women? So it sounds like maybe hormone therapy if they're able to do it.
so the first thing is have awareness of what's going on and tell yourself the truth about it. And which is the journaling and looking at it and everything.
Yeah.
And then you start investigating what are you willing to do?
Right.
Because there's lots of food that will help you with your hormones.
Mm,
So does somebody want to take a more natural plant-based way? Does somebody want to go to their doctor? And they need to start sorting out what feels right to them, what's comfortable.
mhm.
And then they also want to look at if they also think they have ADHD or they're gifted, then they need to have understanding on how to manage that. So that can be all kinds of different ways. And what matters is somebody is open-minded and they're willing to try new things because we can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it.
Right. Well, and
So
what it also sounds like, at least in the experiences that with women that I've talked to, that this has been their experience, it sounds like what got you here doesn't get you there, right? Like
correct.
the coping mechanisms, however you've been managing it up until this point, are no longer working. And that's when it gets overwhelming for them.
That's correct. That's when the healing crisis, as we say, hits, is everything I know how to do isn't working anymore,
Right.
which is a natural part of the progression. If you look at how the hormones all go and you look at the lifespan of somebody who's got ADHD, you see as the person gets older, if they didn't have perimenopause and menopause was not a situation, even with ADHD and giftedness, it's like there's lots of coping when the person's younger and they're working and they're busy and they have these things. And then once life slows down a little bit, or they get a little older and their coping strategies change, then their experience of being gifted and having ADHD is much different than when they were younger, simply because of their age and how things are changing in their outside world.
Yeah.
And so there's that too. And so that's why there's so many factors. It's like you can't put anything in one big box on this one.
Right. And I see the same thing with the perimenopause symptoms. It's like my
Yeah.
experience isn't your experience, isn't the person next to you's experience, and it's all a little different. And yet we hear about just brain fog and, maybe, rage, fatigue, hot flashes. Like these are the things that everyone thinks, if I don't have these things, then it must not be happening. It's like, oh, it's a whole other thing. There's a whole other list. How are your ears? Are they itchy? Like, 'cause that could be it. There's so many other things
Right.
that
Right.
it, could be
I
that.
remember when my ears were itching really bad and somebody goes, "Oh, that's just an allergy." And I'm like, "But I don't have allergies."
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, just don't be so quick to just dismiss what's happening as a thing that we don't know for sure that's what it is."
Yeah. And I think, at least my experience with individuals who, you know, have some sort of neurodivergent tendencies, or I don't know, is diagnosis the right word?
Yeah.
No. They, like there can be communication issues around that. So then it's like trying to talk to a doctor about the symptoms and not feeling heard or understood could also I would think complicate things even more.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, just like that psychiatrist who laughed at my client
Yeah.
and then tried to tell her she was bipolar. Thankfully, she didn't listen.
Right.
Because not everybody knows everything. So that
Yeah.
takes a lot of discernment. And I always tell every woman I know, make sure that you're being heard. And if you're not being heard, you keep going to different people or you keep searching until you find somebody who will
Right.
listen to you.
What are your recommendations for someone to find to maybe you might have to go to a couple providers before you find the right one, but are there certain things they should be asking, certain things they should be looking for, credentials, anything like that that can help someone go, okay, at least narrow down the pool of people I might want to see?
Well, you want somebody, if you're got ADHD or you suspect you do, you want somebody who specializes in neurodivergence and or giftedness.
And
His
is that a
special
medical doctor, a psychiatrist,
It could
what?
be a therapist, a
Okay.
psychologist. Most medical doctors, not so much unless they're
Okay.
psychiatrists. There's a lot of really good therapists around that specialize in it that can help and then decide if somebody needs medicine or not. Because not everybody has ADHD needs or
Right.
wants medicine.
Sure.
And so, you do that. You ask questions. What do you know about these things? Same thing with menopause and perimenopause. You
Right.
only want to talk to people who really are educated,
Yeah.
specifically educated. And then I think one of the most important things is when you're asking the questions, is the person listening to you?
Right.
Are they asking discerning questions
Yeah.
back? Are they asking you things, right? And then to most importantly, I believe, is to ask yourself, it's kind of silently like,
Hmm.
how is this landing on me? How is
Right.
this interaction landing on me? Am I feeling heard? Am I feeling valued? Is what the person's saying relevant to the questions I'm asking?
Right.
Is what's happening here something that I can trust on some level?
Yeah.
And if any part of you is hesitant or doesn't feel like it can be trusted, I would go to the next person,
Yeah.
you know. And then what I do is I do a lot of mentoring for people. And so one of the things that I do for some of my clients is I will call up the practitioner and interview them.
Mm-hmm.
And say, I have a referral for you, and these are the situations, and ask a lot of the discerning questions. And then we at least know that's an angle to take. And
Sure.
then they can go see if it feels right, you know.
Right.
So you can always have an advocate kind of do those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But a really big one is if any red flag, even a little tiny bit goes
Right.
off, go to
Yeah.
go to somebody else. There's
Right.
plenty of people who will understand you.
Yeah. And that red flag is going to be different for everybody.
Correct. That's why
Like,
it's not a one answer.
yeah. And that's why there can be lots of people that can help others because there's a person for everyone.
Right, right. You know, and sometimes you'll find somebody who's really perfect in helping you, and then all of a sudden it kind of gets stagnant. And that to me, that means you've grown to the next level,
Right.
and it's time to get other people to come in and support you and
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's totally cool.
Yeah. And it's okay to be like, this is no longer working for me and to find
Right,
somebody else. Because I
right.
do think that there's sometimes people stay with providers. It's like, oh, I don't like them, but it's convenient, or I already know them.
Right.
So,
Or you know, I know the rules at this one, or I would feel bad. Their feelings will be hurt if I move
yeah.
on. And I'm like, but it's your life.
Right.
And if their feelings are hurt, then that's on them. You
Right.
know, there's things to do, but people tend to do things like that.
Yeah.
And or stick with somebody who they don't like because of all the different reasons, you know,
Yeah.
like it's close or it's easy, or at least they know the rules, or they
They
have
take
my
my
record
insurance.
and take my
Yeah.
insurance. There's lots of people who take your
Yeah.
insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The is there so for menopause, there's menopause.org where you can find practitioners that are specialized. Is there something similar for ADHD, neurodivergence, giftedness?
Oh, that's a good one. The Sang website does good for giftedness with certain providers.
Okay.
Um, and then there's a few of us all that have websites. Inner Gifted's a really good group. Hoagies is a really good group, hoagies.org. Um, Me, Matt Zakreski. I mean, I can literally count on
Yeah.
these fingers the people who are helping neurodivergent gifted adults.
Yeah.
And so you can even search it, you know, neurodivergent gifted adult help, and you'll probably get one of us.
Yeah. No, that's great because
Yeah.
that's what people don't know where to find menopause care. It just came up this week in a group that I manage online where someone's like, "Does anyone know where I can find a good doctor?" And I said, I only looked at the first page and there were some people in the local healthcare system that were in there. And I said, I didn't dig down. There's 15 pages, of worth of research here, but like check here. And I maybe take for granted sometimes it's like, oh, everybody knows about this website, but I find that it's that people don't.
No, you
So,
know,
it's like
and
helping them
sometimes
out.
and sometimes people don't know that that's a place that they can really get reliable information, or that there even is a place, you know.
Right,
And if you're struggling, and if somebody's struggling and they even have a little bit of shame about it
right.
or fear about disclosing it, then unless they're secretly going and looking online, then that's going to be hard. So I always tell people, talk to a trusted friend. You got
Right.
to have somebody in your corner. And, you know, and if you don't, then we need to find somebody to get in your corner. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And start to say, okay, well, let me just investigate things.
Right. It's so hard if you don't have somebody that you feel like you can go to, or just, yeah, there can be a lot of shame or stigma is probably, the bigger one too that people might
Mhm.
feel. It's not like people might be okay with it, but we don't know because it's not talked about. And because it's not talked about, there's an assumption made that,
Right.
oh,
Hmm.
we shouldn't talk about this. And I mean, the same thing happens with menopause and perimenopause. It's like, oh, we shouldn't talk about this. It's like, no, we should talk about this.
Right.
Because the
Exactly.
more people know, the more information that gets out there, like your podcast, this podcast, different topics, but the more people hear about it, the more then they go, oh, that was my whole purpose of creating this, was that people could hear themselves or see themselves in stories that get told and go, oh, I didn't think about that, or I didn't know that. And it's like, yeah, like these are, because that was my experience. It's like things, nobody was talking to me about this stuff.
No,
So,
no. I mean, I look back and how many times have I been to personally been, and I'm educated in all of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That I have personally been to doctors, and then I bring up the topics of anything around any of these topics,
right.
And if they just brush me off oftentimes or don't listen, or they'll say, well, you're smart, you'll figure it out. Or, well, you're professional, you know. And I'm like, well, that's not really what I'm asking.
Right.
And and so there's all of these assumptions, there's all of this cultural people who think they understand and they don't understand. And you'll get through it and all these trite comments. And so we need to have people who will hear us and really listen to what's going on.
Yeah.
And then to know that you're not crazy, that there is a solution, and that it's an art and a science, and it's sometimes it takes a little bit to get to a good
Yeah.
solution.
And it's
That
not a one size fits all solution.
no, it's not, because we live in a pill a day mentality society that says, I'm going to go to the doctor, they're going to write a script, it's all going to be better. And that's not how this works. That's not how
Right.
either of these things work. And when they're working together and you have different hormones and different neurochemicals and life experience and life stressors happening, then it is not a one size fits all. And sometimes it takes a lot of work and communication between the person helping you and you, the person being helped, to decide what the best strategy is. And then is it working and how to tweak it if we need to. And so it takes a lot of willingness. And I think people think in this culture we're trained, one pill will take care of it. No,
Right.
that's not. Neither one of these situations are pill related necessarily. And if you do use medication of any kind, it's an adjunct. There's other things that have to be happening. And so it takes a little bit of a mind shifting for the woman to understand that it's just not going to be put a band-aid on it and everything's better, because it's not how it works.
Yeah.
This is not how it works.
Any final comments you would love to leave viewers with?
That first of all, I want people to realize that everybody has inherent value and is perfect, whole, and complete exactly as you are. And I'm getting goosebumps. And that any kind of challenges because of biology or how we're built is meant for our greater good. And so we want to look at these things as opportunities in like grist for the mill. Yes, it doesn't feel good. Yes, it's terrible. There's all these things. And there's something magical and amazing about you, the person that's trying to emerge. And if you focus on that, it will help you deal with the hard times.
Thank you. And how do people find you if they would like to work with you?
If they'd like to work with me, they can go to my website, which is msdianneallen.com, MSDIANNE. I have two N's in Diane, Allen.com. And they can also reach me through on Facebook through my Someone Gets Me Facebook group, which is designed for ADHD gifted people.
Great. And I'll put both the website and a link to your podcast and Facebook group in the show notes so people can see those as well,
Great.
and have easy access to them. And maybe a couple of the other websites you, you mentioned will be easier for them to find it. So, Diana, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Uh,
you're welcome. Thank you for
yeah.
having me. This is so
Yeah.
fun.
Yay, of course. And thank you for listening, watching. Please feel free to share, to comment. If you're interested in being a guest, please also feel free to reach out. Otherwise, thank you so much for having a listen.